Welcome to the Brave Little Podcast. Joining me from Los Angeles, California, the location of the fictional film The Sandlot, it's Aaron the Jet Alvarado. Almost said Rodriguez.
I'm the great Bambino.
The what?
The great Bambino. How you doing, David? Good to see you.
I thought you said the great Bambi.
The wimpy deer?
Aaron, it has been 25 years. 25 years.
25 long years.
25 years. Yeah. Did you see this film in theaters?
I certainly did not. I saw it thanks to a membership to the great institution known as Blockbuster Video.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's the first place I ever saw it.
Oh, okay. Let me guess. You racked up some late fees on this one.
Oh, yeah. Tons of late fees. So we had to end up buying it or bootlegging it. I can't really remember. But I did watch the movie several times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to think of how many times have we watched this movie?
It's
got to be in the hundreds. I mean, I've seen it at least 150 times.
It's one of the great rewatchable films. This is, it's referenced, especially, millennial and millennial-ish aged boys, this is, a hallmark of so many people's upbringing, whether you're a sports fan or not. But it's amazing to me that, remembering how much I loved this film when it came out, and 25 years later, it's as beloved as ever. That it was, even though back then what I didn't realize as a kid, that it didn't make a ton of money, and it also was not well reviewed. It was, had fairly mediocre reviews. It's just one of those ones that's been absolute cult classic. It's the test of time.
Definitely. I think it's part of that. It's part of the magic of movies, really. I mean, you take a movie that doesn't really fit the formats of most movies. There's not the perfect structure. It's not particularly well written or directed, or doesn't really look that good. But the story is what's most important, and the characters, the story, the plot, all of it is just, it lines up perfectly for when I saw it. I was probably 13 or 14 the first time I saw it, and everything about it just hit me in that right moment. I loved baseball when I was a kid, so again, right smack in the heart, basically. It went right to it.
Sweet spot.
And it's perfect. And again, people get tired of talking about, identity politics or identity representation in media. But I will say, as a kid, Benny the Jet Rodriguez was a hero of mine because he was some vague Latino. I think he's actually Cuban, the actor is. And
the actor is.
Yeah, the actor's Cuban. The characters, they never really talk about it. But, as a kid, I saw the coolest kid in the movie.
But it takes place in Los Angeles.
Exactly.
And certainly from my perspective, and although they might not explicitly say it, for all intents and purposes, Benny the Jet Rodriguez is, Mexican American.
Yeah, well, he's a Dodger fan, so that's all you really need to know. But yeah, I totally felt proud to see, a brown kid on the screen. So, it's just,
and Benny's the hero.
He's the hero of the movie. The coolest kid.
It's amazing because he's not the primary protagonist in terms of the story's not told through him.
No.
He's not narrating this thing, yet he is the hero in every sense of the word.
Right. Well, he's basically a living legend. And that's it's part of the fun of the story, really. It takes place over one summer, and it's kind of just this small little story, and it's not a very low stakes, but these things are so vitally important to the development of these kids that I think when you're a kid and you're developing, you latch onto stories like this. And I think this is why you rewatch it a million times, because you want to live in that universe, and it's so amazingly crafted and so believable that it just seems fun to keep revisiting the story over and over again.
Oh, yeah. It's a fun world they create. Now, a note on Benny, though. This reminds me, I have this distinct memory of my sister with some of her friends. This is shortly after the film came out, so we're pretty young. I mean, she had to have been, I don't know, 8 or 9. But they were talking about, there was just this fierce debate about who was cuter. And the debate was between Benny the Jet Rodriguez, or Benny, I guess I should say Benjamin Franklin Rodriguez is his full name. And yeah. So
Oh
it
wow.
was yeah,
I would
which I
not
wouldn't have
suspect
thought.
yeah as
I
the
would not have thought
no.
necessarily. I guess he's got that boyish charm, but it was always Benny though. Benny was
Of course. Benny was a
because
stud.
Benny's the non-bully.
That's
He's the
right.
only one that like is a real athlete out there. He's like the only one that's like really good at
Mhm.
baseball. I mean, he played in the major
That's right.
leagues. I
Also, he
mean,
doesn't have the speech impediment. So that yeah does. Or yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I gotta think. Yeah, it would be a little. It'd be a little grating after a while. Um, but yeah. Anyway, I remember that being so funny. Like Benny was. I mean, he was beloved not just to the boys that were watching it, looking at him as like this hero in terms of like great character, great
Yeah.
athlete, just all around friend, good guy, leader, like the epitome of a leader. But also like to the girls. I mean, he was
He was
yeah
the heartthrob
the
for
most.
sure.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, he was. Oh yeah, he was. So we are going to mention our 5 favorite moments slash scenes of the film, and anyone that's tuning in on Facebook Live, please comment your favorite scenes as we're talking about this, and we'll discuss the comments. Um, but before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about like why this film
Mhm.
has stood the test of time, and also kind of what I would call it an unconventional film, which seems weird. I don't know that I would have necessarily described this film as unconventional until a more recent rewatch, as well as an article I read recently in Esquire that talks about this being a great baseball film, partly because it's not a baseball film that ends with a championship game, or like most sports movies, you have these series of games that it culminates in this final match, and you can only do so much with that construct or that narrative construct. This is a film that absolutely eschews all of that, and it has a pacing which, in retrospect, seems very odd to have gone this way. There's not a main game played. I mean, the climax of the film is a chase with a dog, and the only actual baseball played in this movie. There's one game that's played, and it's a game that's never close. It's not even like an edge of your seat. Who's going to win this? It's the who's winning was never in question. Um, can Is this a good example of us being able to have great sports movies that don't rely on the formulaic sports
Oh
narrative?
yeah, I think it's maybe the best example of that. I like thinking about this movie. Obviously, you associate it with baseball, but really, what is this movie about? It's not really about baseball. Yes, that's part of the narrative, and it drives the story, obviously. But this is a movie about friendship. This is a movie about growing up. This is a movie about community, neighborhoods.
Yeah.
This is a movie about getting your first kiss. I mean,
Yes.
it really is. Like so, baseball kind of works in the background, obviously, and baseball is the device they use to tell these stories. But like you said, it doesn't really matter in the end, and I think that's interesting because the form of baseball that they play in the Sandlot, it never matters. Like he says in the beginning of the movie, the game just keeps going on, and they don't keep score, and it just doesn't matter. They just play for the love of it. So
Yeah. That's interesting that the narrative, and I typically don't like this much narration in a film, though it
hmm
certainly works here. But that was so effective at the very beginning, talking about this kind of eternal game. Don't, like you said, don't keep score. They were a man short before Smalls
right.
arrived, and they're not going to use Yaya's sister. And but they just don't. They're just continually playing. But it also narratively explains the audience like this isn't going to matter. Like the baseball is important, but it's not. You know, the score of the game is not what this is going to be
Exactly.
about. Like you said, it's a movie about friendship, about a kid moving into a new place over the summer. It's supposed to be somewhere in the San Fernando Valley, though the backdrop is unmistakably Utah, which is where this film took place. I'll have you know, this entire film filmed in Utah, around the Salt Lake area, or in mostly in Salt Lake County, a little bit in Utah County near Provo. But the actual Sandlot itself, the diamond, is in Salt Lake City, in what's called the neighborhood of Glendale near Rose
Oh,
Park.
really?
It was Yeah. So the Utah Film Commission, it was actually the Sandlot itself was the very first historical landmark that the state of Utah kind of designated per the Utah Film Commission. So it's an actual historical landmark. Unfortunately, the neighborhood around, the neighbors have, I guess they've voiced their they don't want it to be a tourist attraction, basically.
Yeah.
Unlike the Field of Dreams in Iowa, which I've been to,
Or
and that thing is absolutely a tourist attraction,
yeah.
and it's incredible. And they keep up this field in the middle of corn, this baseball diamond in the middle of cornfield, which is awesome. The actual diamond in Salt Lake City has gone to complete crap. It's overgrown with weeds, all this stuff, because the neighbors are fine with it being a historical, a landmark and having that designation, but they just don't want people constantly coming through their neighborhood to go there.
So the diamond, is that owned by is it public land or what is it? Is it somebody's backyard?
Well, that's what's interesting is, from my understanding, is that it's not someone's backyard, but if the city owns that land, it shouldn't be overgrown.
Sure, exactly.
And also the neighborhood doesn't really, I mean, they can voice their concerns all they want, but the state of Utah would be in their best interest to make that thing.
You would think.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. Now, the cul-de-sac that Smalls lives in with Benny, that's actually in the Sugar House neighborhood where I lived. So when you visited me in Utah, it's in that same neighborhood where that cul-de-sac is.
It felt very familiar when I went there. Yeah, so that explains it
definitely,
all.
Yes. It looks like the houses in that general area. So another area, it's in just south of Salt Lake City, called Midvale, is where Vincent Drugs is, where they buy the baseball. And that sign is still up. It's a completely abandoned building inside. I mean, it's decrepit and falling apart, but the sign is still up. In fact, I did a little short film. Is it more of like a Coca-Cola spec spot?
I've seen it
with Lindsay. It was a period piece.
Yeah, really cool.
Schwinn bicycle.
We need you to post that online so that everyone can watch it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Really yes. But I wanted to film there because it was like, to me, this is the Sandlot. This is where they got the ball. They when they had to go buy a new baseball. This is they get their pennies together and they go to Vincent Drugs and get it.
Does Vincent Drugs look like the drugstore in A Quiet Place now?
Yeah, so it's very much like oh yes, sans the little NASA toys, which are deadly, turns out. But anyway, so that's probably enough preamble of the film and its importance, which we'll continue to talk about throughout. Yeah. But let's get to our 5 moments. I mean, you and I did talk beforehand to make sure we didn't have too much overlap, because we wanted to talk about, hit on all the great stuff. And really, turns out this movie is just a string of scenes that are iconic, just one iconic scene after the other after the other.
Just going over them. I mean, we only picked 10, but there's at least 15 to 17 very memorable sequences, on top of all the funny dialogue that we still repeat to this day. I mean, You're Killing Me, Smalls. I'll see that shirt once a week at least. So yeah, this movie is so timeless, and I feel like kids today probably, I don't know, I'm not really around kids, so I don't know what kind of movies they watch, but I feel like if a kid watched this now, they'd be into it. So.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. You want to start us off?
Yeah. So
with one of your.
The first scene that I have that's really memorable to me is the Smalls introduction scene where Benny takes pity on this poor kid that just moved to the neighborhood, and he brings him out to the Sandlot. So he introduces him to all the kids on the team or that play in the game, and of course they hate him off the bat.
Right.
And he lets Smalls play, and we come to find out that he doesn't know how to catch. He doesn't even know where left field is, let alone left center.
No, let alone left center.
And so Benny, taking pity on this kid, sends him left center and says, "Put your glove up in the air. You're going to catch this ball. I'm going to hit it directly to you." And that's what he does, because Benny is a superstar and he's the world's greatest baseball player. In that photo, we see Smalls holding the glove up in the air. And seconds later, Benny puts that baseball right in the webbing.
Right, just directly in the glove.
Yeah.
And you can see the look on his face. He's grimacing with that look of, I don't catch this ball. These kids are going to eviscerate me, because they already have.
Oh, yeah, they roasted him hard.
Like L7 weenie.
Yes, exactly.
He's a square, Benny, a square.
I mean, he was ready to go back home. And also,
he was.
Also, we know that he got the black eye from playing catch with his stepdad. So
very unsuccessfully.
Yeah, he's really, really bad at it. Although rewatching that sequence, I didn't realize that Dennis Leary threw the ball directly at his eye. So
so
kind Kind of a messed up move.
Is this a? Should we go on our Denis Leary tangent, our little side note here? Because, yeah, first off, dangerous way to throw the baseball at a kid who's never played catch before.
Terrible.
Don't throw near the head. It's just a bad idea. I mean, like Smalls really should have charged the mound. Not unlike
we've seen 3 of them already to start the season. I was expecting a hat toss directly into Leary's face, at least.
Throw the glove at him as he's running. But Denis Leary doesn't really just plays the kind of like mostly uninterested, but like begrudgingly go along with it stepdad.
The reluctant stepdad. He plays it perfectly. Yeah.
Not like a full on a-hole, but like you could tell he's not really committed to the.
I mean, obviously Denis Leary loves this kid's mom, and this kid is along for the ride too. Unfortunately, exactly. Baby Ruth and and this kid. Yeah. So he tries, but obviously Smalls doesn't know how to play, so takes the ball right off the eye.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna try and go in chronological order. Though it's not gonna be perfectly in chronological order because I'm already forgetting a couple of these scenes, which one comes first. But I'm gonna start off with the 4th of July sequence, the night game, the only night game of the year, because the fireworks are going off and it's just enough to light up the night sky for them to play baseball. This scene is significant for several reasons, not just because you have this iconic Ray Charles America the Beautiful track playing in the background, which is great, but because it adds to the feeling of we talked about this movie being a movie about friendship, about a group of kids just hanging out playing baseball. We talk about narrative and plot and people always, filmmakers and editors, talk about having to quote kill your darlings in the editing room, meaning cut scenes that aren't helping push the film forward. And this strikes me as a film that could have very easily been selected as one of those, because it doesn't have any information in that sequence that's important, in the rest of the film. But to me, it is such a great scene. It's so fun to watch. It's so fun to listen to. You've got Ham running around, grabbing food off of all the different tables in the cul-de-sac. And you've got them playing baseball at night. It's such a fun scene. And it belongs in the film. And I'm so grateful that it did not get cut. But it's just one of my favorite moments.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best depictions of, Americana, 4th of July that we see in any movie, really. I mean, if we're talking about iconic 4th of July sequences, you're going back to the Sandlot, because it's just like block parties, fireworks, baseball, everything that is like an example of the ideal society. I mean, it's really cool. It's really fun. And like you said, it doesn't push the movie forward, but who cares? It's still one of the best sequences in the entire movie.
Yeah. So. Really, really great scene. We've got Colton Alvarado here agreeing.
Yes, sir.
Definitely one of the best scenes, especially when he grabs the hot dog.
Thanks, cuz. He knows what's up.
Yeah, no, it's great. He was grabbing the hot dog. He was grabbing everything. He was whatever his hands could hold on the way over to the baseball diamond. He was grabbing it, which I love.
I mean, really, if we're thinking about this movie, Ham should have been called the Beast. Like, he was the Beast.
He was the Beast.
Yeah, that's a better nickname for Ham, is the Beast.
Now, this isn't on my list, but his line, "I'm baking like a toasted cheeser," which is, as a kid, I was like, I don't even know what a toasted cheeser is, but like,
but you understand.
Yeah, totally. Ham is great.
Yeah, so my number 2 scene that really sticks out for me is they're playing baseball, and Benny knocks the cover off the ball.
Yeah.
He hits a home run, and he hits it so hard that the cover comes off the ball, ruining their game. And Smalls to the rescue. He says, I know where I can get a ball. And he goes back home, and he grabs his stepdad's ball, which happens to be signed by none other than Babe Ruth, who at the time, Smalls doesn't know who Babe Ruth is.
Right. And I feel like this is what would otherwise be an unbelievable mistake is very believable, because we've set up a couple things already. That Smalls doesn't know who the Grand Bambino is. No. Also, nothing matters more to Small right now than to be accepted by this group of kids who have accepted him, but the fact that he can solve this problem and get the baseball, keep the game going, which was the most important thing. It's very believable that he'd run and go grab that off the shelf and think, no big deal, I'll go, be able to go put it back, and having no clue the importance of this ball.
Oh yeah, well he's walked past that ball every day since they moved there, so he's seen it, and he has no idea what the significance is, and of course he's going to do it to help out his buds. So,
well, I love how that this kicks off like what begins as the kind of I guess is mid-second act, but into the final act of the film, which the final act of the film is all about getting that ball back, and then the chase and everything that happens beyond. But what I kind of love about the scene here is they've already established that Benny's the best player by far. But this was kind of like this scene where you can see how, like, in these kids' eyes, this story is going to live on as a legend, as a myth, the day that Benny broke the ball. And it's set up in this really dramatic way where he hits it, and they saw something they've never seen before. And of course it was Benny. Of course, Benny hit that ball so hard, he knocks the cover off.
Yeah, if it's possible to knock a cover off a ball, Benny's going to do it. And he did.
Oh yeah, he sure did. He sure did. All right, my next scene is when this scrappy group of baseball players get paid a little visit on the Sandlot by the uniform squad. The kids that clearly have money, and parents that are willing to pay for them to be in the rec league. It's unclear if they're associated with a school or just like it doesn't even really matter. But they show up, and it immediately establishes like, oh, these are the organized players versus the unorganized, right? And it proceeds into this insult match with Ham, who is just top of his game, with some lines that are so great. And come to find out, the director's back there with a bullhorn, just throwing out ideas.
Is that really what happened?
Yeah. Oh, he was throwing out all these different insults, and he was just having that actor Ham just deliver them, which is great because it's not like he was practicing these lines. It's he's hearing them, he's performing them, and they come out like just perfectly. And then of course it ends with the ultimate insult, which maybe that insult hasn't aged too well. But at that age, the idea of you play ball like a girl, is seemingly is pretty offensive. But the insult. So I mean, I'm cheating a little bit because there's a two-parter here. It's both the insult match, which is incredible, as well as the game immediately after. And I referenced how this is the only quote unquote organized baseball game in the whole movie, the only actual game. And the kids in the Sandlot are just crushing them from the beginning, crushing them both in terms of the score and Ham crushing them with insults as the catcher. Just talking about seeing your sister naked out there in the field is, Ham is just, he's owning them mentally, and then they're owning them on the scoreboard. So it's incredible.
So I did propose that we rename him the Beast, and I take that back. Ham was the perfect nickname because he went ham on those kids.
He went ham. It's so, we talked about this already. It's just so rare to see a sequence like this where it's not suspenseful. It's not supposed to be.
No.
They play this game and they just completely just knock it out of the park, literally.
Yeah, and I think it goes to show that they play for the love of the game, not for the accolades, not for the jersey.
Oh yeah, right. I love it. So, what's your next one?
So my next one is the whole sequence where we hear about the beast, the mythology of the beast.
Yes.
So we get Squints.
Whoops.
We get Squints explaining who the beast is.
With flashlight and face.
We get this really funny black and white sequence where we find out that the beast has killed 173 men.
Oh yeah,
he's the world's greatest guard dog. He's also about 12 feet tall, and he's been banished to this junkyard because he's too good at what he does best, which is eat human beings.
Yes, I love this. I love it because they're all at the perfect age where they're gullible enough to believe this, and it sets up the real stakes when, of course, the Babe Ruth signed ball goes over the fence and they got to get it back. The thing that they're afraid of isn't just a big scary dog. It's a thing that's eaten 170 some odd people. And Mr. Myrtle. keeps him chained back there, and he's starving.
And
But it's
to this day, I still say the word forever. It's 3 syllables like that.
oh yeah,
Forever.
forever. Another great sequence though up there in that because this is the camp out scene we're talking about is the s'mores. I mean, I think we'd be remiss without mentioning the s'mores. Like, how can I have some s'more if I haven't had anything? Which is a great line, and then followed up by the even better, "You're killing me, Smalls."
Legendary.
Doesn't know anything. Paul just doesn't know how to throw a ball. He's never had a s'mores in his life, which really, really for me speaks to the inadequacies of his parents. I mean,
oh yeah,
what experiences is this? It's not like s'mores is a California unique thing. I mean, like, he should have had s'mores at this point in his life.
I feel like Smalls was maybe he grew up in like a cellar or something. Just he had no contact with the outside world.
Really feels like it.
Never had a friend before. Was not allowed to throw a ball around. Doesn't know what
Didn't
a s'more
have
is.
I mean, like just the fact that he would wear that salmon hat with that bill. And not realize how ridiculous it looked. Yeah, that's a great sequence. All right, so my next one is another great scene that's got it that has kind of the backdrop of an iconic track music that's playing to it. And this is a scene, another one that really is not pushing a narrative forward, but is very true to the experience of children and wanting to be like adults and making stupid decisions. And that is the tobacco at the carnival scene. Where Bertram pulls out some Big Chief. This is what the pros are doing. And they don't hesitate. They all take some, and then they ride the rides and start puking in a hilarious sequence. I remember thinking it was so funny as a kid. I mean, there are really two things that I took away from this sequence, especially as a child watching it. It was really, really funny, but also I'm never chewing tobacco in my life.
No way. It seems
if
awful.
This is the result.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the purpose of the movie isn't, probably isn't to necessarily teach lessons, but it definitely did one here.
I can honestly say that I never had any desire whatsoever to chew tobacco after seeing this movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, certainly not to chew it. Certainly not. But it's just a great scene.
Very, very funny.
Another one that easily could have been on the cutting room floor, but thankfully included.
And that's like, so again, you watch these movies because you feel like you want to be a part of that universe, but also I feel like there's parts of your own life that probably reflected some of these things that you associate with. And I definitely remember growing up and doing things that I wasn't supposed to do with my friends because we were just there together and there was no parents around. So you just did stuff. And that's part of the experience of growing up, right? So
yeah, trial and error.
Yeah. Chewing tobacco. Sounds awful. So my next favorite scene is the public pool scene.
Maybe the best.
It's very, very funny, very very appropriate for the era. Can't really say that it's aged well because of the whole non-consensual kiss thing, but it's like, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't forgive them. Forgive Squints for kissing the girl without her approval. But
sure,
that's like when you're a kid, these are the kind of scenarios that run through your head, and you imagine a scenario where an older woman or older girl, I should say, falls for you, even though you're a child, and that's what played out in this scene. And again, I feel like I went through these same sorts of fantasies. So seeing it play out on the screen, I really associated with my own childhood, and it made me want to be Squints in that one scene. So. Oh
yeah. I mean, another just incredibly iconic sequence. Yeah. Now, I don't know if it helps or not that they eventually got married in the narrative. Probably doesn't. Obviously, any situation where there's one of the participants is unwilling is a bad one.
Yeah, it's probably unacceptable, especially in 2018. We can't.
Yes, and really, hopefully, at any time. But yes, like you said, because of the fact that these are little kids, again, it's like you don't forgive it, but there's this level of like, I can see why, like.
Well, you can see why he thought it was a good idea. You can totally see why, going through his head, he thought this makes sense. Like, this is my chance. I have to take it. He definitely shouldn't have, but
no, right.
But he went for it.
But watching at the time, there's this level of like, oh my gosh, he's actually going to do this. Like, you joke about it, you talk about it, you think about it, as a kid, a situation like that, and then he jumps into the deep end and he doesn't know how to swim. Like he risked it all to be able to get this moment.
He did
And
risk
that
it all.
look of when he's being administered CPR, and then he looks up and gives that smile to the guys, and then pretends like he's unconscious again. Is just that squints look of like, and then they got banned from the pool, rightfully so.
Yes, definitely.
That is definitely a classic scene. All right, my next one.
Hold on. Do we know that the actor that played Squints, did he really have to wear glasses, or were those just props?
I don't think so. I don't know. But those glasses were incredible.
It's a great prop. Made the character.
Yeah, no, it's really great. Yes. He was originally, most of these kids were cast for different characters, and they kind of swapped them all around as they were doing readings, script readings and whatnot. And they realized like certain personalities fit with different characters. So they kind of swapped them around. But I think he was, I want to say, the the actor that played Squints was originally Yaya, and Yaya was Bertram, and they were all kind of mixed around.
Okay.
Smalls was Smalls, Benny was Benny, certainly Ham was Ham, but the rest of them, they kind of they swapped it around. But I'm so glad that they did. I'm so glad that the director was like, okay, no, he's got to be the kid that plays Squints.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the casting just for a second.
Yeah.
All these kids were great.
Oh, they were, every one of them.
They all gave great performances.
Tommy, there's tiers of importance, right? Like there's the certain characters that get a little more screen time, but even the ones that get a little bit less, like I would say Bertram de Nunez, certainly the Timmy of the Tommies. They're all, even like the ones that aren't as featured, incredible.
Yeah,
like incredible,
totally believable. You feel like those kids, and they just pulled it off. So, yeah, great job on casting.
So, really incredible. So my next scene, it is actually perfect timing, with a comment from B. Mort himself, which is "Heroes get remembered, but legends never die."
That's true.
This is the sequence with Babe Ruth himself in a dream to Benny the Jet, when they've given up on trying to get this baseball over. They've gone through all these different contraptions and different methods of, trying to get this ball back. They're so frustrated, and he gets visited by Babe Ruth, who tells him that everyone gets one chance in life to do something great, and to take advantage of that opportunity, and essentially tells him to just jump over there and run and grab it. And then on his way out, he utters that iconic line, "Remember, kid, heroes get remembered, but legends never die. Follow your heart, kid, and you'll never go wrong." And it's just like, seemingly, just simple dialogue that's just like, okay, heroes get remembered, but legends never die. But that's become this iconic quote.
Oh yeah,
I see it all the time. I've seen people with tattoos of it. I've seen, this is, it's an incredible scene that, like, Benny has a dream where Babe Ruth himself instructs him how to get out of the biggest pickle, and that's by getting into a pickle with the Beast himself.
That's right.
Which kickstarts, of course, the final act and sequence, of the film, or not final sequence, I guess, but like the main climax, which is getting the PF flyers on and just trying to outrun that dog, jump over, grab it, and outrun.
Did you ever own a pair of PF flyers?
I have no. I wanted to badly after seeing this film.
The greatest product placement ever. PF flyers.
It was incredible. Did you ever own any?
No, couldn't afford them. I was
no. Well,
I don't even know where you would get PF flyers from.
I don't know either, because I don't think the vintage thing was in yet, right? Like they weren't really doing that yet. They certainly have since.
So that heroes are the legends line that you just referenced. So in the late 1990s, early 2000s, there were a ton of bands, like a ton of pop punk bands or emo bands that would put clips from movies into their songs, or right before the song. And I feel I don't know if anyone ever used that clip, but I feel like that would be a perfect clip.
It really is. It's like the Rufio line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's just what I think of when I hear that heroes,
It's so good.
legends line.
I what's funny for me as a kid, I remember thinking how badly I wanted to be visited by my sports icon. Now, the thing is my sports icon at the time was very much still alive and was still in the prime of his career when this film came out, and that was Steve Young for the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah. And I don't think at that point I had met him yet, because the San Francisco 49ers did their training camp in Sacramento, specifically a junior college called Sierra College in Rockland. And my dad would take me over there all the time to go watch them, practice, and you'd hang at the fence as the fence right outside the locker room that they walk to. Like they didn't exactly have a totally clear access to the locker room. Like they had to walk by, although it was fenced off, they had to walk by a crowd of people. Eventually, soon after this film, I got to actually meet, shake hands, and have Steve Young sign something, which was like the biggest moment of my life at that point. But before that, it was like, if I had a problem, I was like, oh man, I wish Steve Young, like the ghost of the living Steve Young, would come visit me in a dream.
You wanted him to scramble out of your closet and into your heart?
Scrambled in a semi-concussed state.
Steve Young doesn't strike me as particularly tall. Is he tall in real life?
No. So I have a photo with him, and I'll show it to you.
Okay.
Nah, he's not that tall.
Really? Okay.
No, not that tall. I mean, I like.
For a football
he might
player.
be like 6 foot.
Okay, for a football player, that's not very tall at all.
Yeah. I mean, he might be 5'11", 6 foot, something like that. Yeah. I think I was like 12 when that photo was taken. He's actually got a bit of a gut. It's like it's in the off season. This is on the campus at BYU. I went to BYU football camp when I played football. And
did he throw you a pass?
What's that?
Did he throw you a pass?
Oh, he sure did. We played catch for about 15 minutes.
That's amazing.
I mean, it was an incredible story. There was this speech that was given by Lavelle Edwards, the late great coach and national championship winner from BYU. He was supposed to speak to us in this group setting, and I'm this 12-year-old kid running around BYU campus that is just so enormous to me, and I can't find the room. I don't know even what building it is. It's got these acronyms, and I don't know. And I was like almost on the verge of tears, because I was just like, I'm not going to be able to see Lavelle Edwards. And I look over to this field, and there's so many different fields and practice facilities and things on campus, but I see it's essentially a soccer field, and it's huge. And way in the distance, I see this guy throwing this kind of bunch of footballs kind of in this canister against this net, and it was an unmistakable throwing motion with his left hand. And I'm looking at him thinking, there's no way Steve Young's here in Utah. Like, I know he has a house in Utah, but like at this point in the offseason, he'd still be in San Francisco. And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, I think that's Steve Young. And I start walking closer and closer and closer and closer. And then he starts to see me, and he notices that I'm like ever so slightly walking closer, and I'm like really kind of timid because I can't believe what I'm seeing. And then he turns around and was just like, want to play catch? And it was just like, I went from being like this emotional state of I'm not going to be able to see Lavelle, I don't know where I'm going, to playing catch with my sports like athlete icon.
Right. At that point, you're like, Lavelle who? I'm going to go play catch with Steve.
So I have this camera in my backpack, the little wind up cameras, and I eventually kids started seeing him. The speech got out, people saw him, and eventually there was a crowd. But I had one of the guys I'd befriended take a photo of me and Steve, and I'll never forget going to develop that film, writing or wherever. I was so excited to see the picture, and it came out, and it was like, it was a little dark, but like, it worked. It was okay. It was fine. And I remember showing my dad, and my dad's first comment was like expressing concern for Steve's physical state, considering how soon the season's going to start. And
that is awesome.
He's just like, we got Steve's like, he's got a little bit of a gut, and he's just like, no, the season starts in like 6 weeks. Like, we can't, what is he doing? Like my dad's like, like we're supposed to be contenders. What is he doing?
That is incredible. What year was that?
It's by the way. Oh gosh, probably let's see, 98.
Oh, okay. So they were like 3 years removed from the Super Bowl.
3 years from winning the Super Bowl. Yeah. But still contenders. Like, so T.O. was on the rise. He just started. He's like a rookie or second
Jerry
season.
Rice was still there.
Jerry Rice was still there. And so like we weren't the best team in the NFL, but we were certainly a contender, in the conversation for, potentially going to the Super Bowl. But my dad was just like, he's not, no, like, Steve, what are you doing? Like, what are you eating?
That is hilarious.
I mean, it was like, not even like,
well,
my son is a photo with the Hall of Famer Super Bowl winning quarterback. No, my dad was concerned about this.
That is so freaking funny. Well, I mean, you always told me your three idols were Steve Young, Steve Jobs, and Stephen Paddock. So
yeah, and Steve Bannon.
The fourth Steve, yes.
Steve Paddock? Did you say Paddock? Oh my gosh! It just dawned on me which Steve you referenced.
Yes, the Las Vegas shooter was.
I thought I was one-upping you with the Bannon reference, and I just realized no. You referenced the guy who committed the greatest match.
Hey, you're the one that picked him, not me. I don't know.
Gosh. That's terrible. Rest in peace. To the many victims.
Steve Bannon, I hope.
Yeah. Well, his career certainly. Wow. Sorry, that was quite a.
Well, I still need to see that picture. I'm not going to rest until I see the picture.
All right,
Steve, Steve Young
I'll share it.
I'll
share it. If I find it, I'll share it digitally here on this Facebook live feed.
Can you tweet
next,
that out? Tweet out that photo, please.
Oh yeah, we can do that. We can do that from Brave Little Twitter feed, which you should follow us at Brave Little Podcast or at Brave Little Pod on Twitter at Brave Little Pod. So you're up.
Yeah.
Next
so
scene.
the final scene that is my favorite scene in this movie. It comes at the end of the movie when an adult Benny the Jet Rodriguez steals home. Playing for his hometown Los Angeles Dodgers, we see a mustachioed Benny the Jet steal home.
Yes.
While his best friend Smalls is calling the game from the press box.
Yes.
Yeah, so he steals home, celebrates by himself apparently, while the rest of his team is in the background.
Oh yeah.
Gives his best friend the thumbs up.
Yes. I was going to say he has no time for his team when he's got to find Smalls up in the booth.
That's right. Benny the Jet.
Can I ask, what's more unlikely? That Benny makes the MLB and happens to be able to play for his hometown team, or Smalls being a broadcaster in the booth for the Dodgers?
Well, considering the Dodgers had one main broadcaster for about 60 years.
Yeah, kind of well known.
Yeah. Mr. Vin Scully. It's probably more realistic that Benny would play for the Dodgers. So.
Yeah, I would agree. Yes.
Also, the fact that Smalls, the actor they got to play Smalls, Judge Reinhold, does not have an announcer's voice.
No, he does not. And that's part. Like Benny has the skill set that you could like it's possible, that kid could have grown up to play college ball and really had a career and got an MLB. Like maybe statistically unlikely, but not impossible. Like there's a path there.
Oh yeah, and how about the fact that the voice that he has as an adult is not the narrator's voice? It's totally different.
No, because the narrator is the director.
Oh, is it really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Which is hilarious.
But yeah, so that little bit at the end was pretty embarrassing with the grown-up Smalls. They could have done better.
Yeah.
But grown-up Benny is amazing.
I love that. I love that Benny is not just playing for the Dodgers. He steals home. Okay, steals. It's like Benny's still doing things that are insanely uncommon, and unrealistic.
Nobody does that. Nobody steals home anymore. Although nobody steals home. It does still kind of happen every once in a while.
Yeah, it has happened for sure, but so rare. That's great.
Great scene. The movie ends on that scene basically. So yeah. Going out on top,
which is a really, really good ending.
Yeah.
So, and my final one is towards the end of the film too. Again, trying to go through this chronological, and that's we've got to talk about our guy Darth Vader, James Earl Jones.
The best.
So they cast James Earl Jones in this role because of his role in Field of Dreams. And I know actors don't love to be typecast in terms of this person is a baseball movie person, or but I'm trying to remember. They had a different actor originally that they were either planning on or maybe even had casted, but they thought there was no way they would be able to get James Earl Jones in this film. But of course they did. And then they had to change some of the timeline of the film just because it would have been unlikely to have had this character, James Earl Jones's character, have been played professional baseball as an African American. And so they actually had to change like they had to tweak the dates of like the actual when the film takes place and when he would have played baseball. So the photos that he shows them are more realistic. But I love that this is James Earl Jones. He's the perfect actor, has the perfect voice. He's got this perfect, like, he finds what they did was funny. The fact that this guy that has this, they thought it was this Mr. Myrtle character, which it wasn't. But not only is it not Mr. Myrtle, he's a guy who played professional baseball and has all of these signed baseballs. Like, what is it signed by the 27 Yankees or something?
Yeah.
What is it?
Yep. 27 Yankees.
I mean, the fact that Smalls was able to rectify the issue by getting his stepdad, who, by the way, that stepdad was not grateful enough.
No.
For, like,
Not a
he was begrudging, like, okay, all right, this is kind of cool, but I'm still pissed. And I'm a little bit like, dude.
You traded up. Be grateful.
You traded up. Be grateful.
Yeah.
Plus, you don't know what this kid went through, Dad. Get that for you.
But James Earl Jones, I mean, this is the first time I ever became aware of him as an actor. I had no idea who he was. And I will always associate James Earl Jones with the Sandlot in my mind. Like, that's the first thing I think of when I think of James Earl Jones. For you, it's probably Star Wars. But for me, it's Sandlot always. And in this movie, every scene that he's in is amazing. It's magical. So, again, perfect casting. He gives a great performance. He has an iconic voice. His line deliveries are just perfect. So, I mean, you can't say enough great things about James Earl Jones in this movie.
So, why did his character need to be blind? Was there...
There's no
functional
reason
purpose
for it. There's
none at all.
Yeah, none.
Other than like maybe explains why he didn't see all the commotion. Like, he still would have heard what was going on in his backyard, but like, I mean, he couldn't see what was going on, so that he would have been able to go out and just get them the ball and throw it over the fence. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't even know. And here's the crazy thing: they never even bothered to knock on his door once and say, "Can I have my ball back?"
No, not one time.
Not a single time.
Which, look, when the neighbors' kids hear when anything falls over in our backyard, I mean, that's the first thing they do. It's an immediate knock.
Well, you also have a beast living in your backyard.
That's the thing. I have a beast that I guess isn't scary enough.
No. The friendliest beast I've ever seen. Coco.
Yeah. Little miniature Australian Shepherd. Lick you to death, I guess.
Yeah, she jumped on my lap once, so I guess that's kind of a violent act.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very, very aggressive. Anyway, this is just what a great movie.
I love The Sandlot. I mean, I just threw it on right now coming into this, just as a refresher, and I want to sit there and watch the entire movie again. So,
it's great. It's great to sit down and watch. It's great in the background because, as we said, there's just a string of scenes that are all great that you could just jump in at any time, and it's a must-see scene, right? Like, it's like that kind of movie. So. Anyway, it's really just one of the all-time greats.
Thank you for listening to the Brave Little Podcast. Hold on to your butts.